Hi there, readers and writers. Our sixth grade lesson today is going to be lesson 5. Welcome to our work of the day. And to get us started, I'm going to have us look at some of the guiding questions that we worked on last week and will be continuing to focus on as we move forward. The first question is, how do human actions affect the natural world? And when we really dig into that, how is it that our behavior affects the world around us? Secondly, how do authors approach providing information and making an argument? And lastly, how does reading for research help me to form an opinion and make an argument? So you can kind of see where we're headed with all of this work around the natural world and the effects that humans have on that. So today with lesson 5, I'm going to have you pause the video, make sure you have these materials in front of you. You'll want to find your distance learning packet and turn the pages to lesson 5, where you'll see the lesson on one page, and you'll also see a lesson 5 note catcher, and that is going to be today's work. You'll also need a pencil. So if you want to pause the video and go to find these materials, and then when you get back, just push play and we'll be ready to begin. All right, welcome back. Today, we have one very focused learning target, and it is on your screen. It states, I can identify the argument and specific claims in a text. So in order to do that, we're going to take a look at a brand new reading, and it is in your distance learning packet. It will be right with lesson 5. And it is called Bee Blight. Now, I'm going to do a read aloud with this article. It's really about 3 pages long, and the goal is that as I read aloud, your eyes are on the print. So I have my print copy, just like you have your print copy. And sometimes if I'm listening to a read aloud, I'll have a pencil in my hand, and I'll be underlining some things as we go along. So that's up to you, but I do ask that you have your eyes on the print so that you can see the words and the vocabulary in particular as I'm reading through it. So I'm going to do the read aloud. It's only going to take us a few minutes, and it's a part of the assignment today. So let's get started. This is from Newsella, and this is an issue overview, and it's called Bee Blight. Bees have been dying at alarming rates for the past 10 years. That makes it more expensive to produce the many crops that depend on them for pollination. Dismay over their disappearance is about more than economics. People have long celebrated bees in poetry, song, and religious texts. The causes for their decline includes disease and poor nutrition, neither of which has an easy solution. The role of another factor, chemicals, is uncertain and debated. That hasn't stopped bee lovers from fixing blame, with some countries banning pesticides called neonicotinoids. The situation. U.S. beekeepers have reported losing an average of 30% of their bees in the winters beginning in 2006 and 2007. The loss of bees for the most recent winter was also in that range. However, losses in the summer of 2015 were unusually high, producing an annual figure of 44%. Beekeepers estimate that the rate was closer to 15% 10 years ago. Environmental groups blame bee deaths on neoisotinoids. These are chemicals often applied to seeds to fend off insects as plants grow. Companies that make these chemicals say the insecticides are being unfairly blamed. Studies have drawn conflicting conclusions. In 2013, the European Union issued a limited ban on the use of 3 neoisotinoids on flowering crops. In Canada, the government has adopted regulations to reduce the use of seeds treated with neoisotinoids. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, is reviewing neoisotinoid use in 2016. In January, the EPA found that one variety may threaten hives when it comes into contact with some crops that attract pollinators. Meanwhile, the agency has proposed bans on spraying several dozen pesticides in other places. They might be harmful in fields where bees have been brought in to pollinate a crop. A government task force has called for more research on pesticide effects. The background. A beehive is an image of community in Shakespearean texts. The Book of Mormon uses honeybees as a symbol of hard work. The Quran, the Muslim holy book, praises bees for making honey. Farmers raising crops from apples to zucchini have long relied on bees because they help fertilize plants and increase yields. Modern growers have come to depend on domesticated honeybees. In the U.S., traveling beekeepers crisscross the country to follow growing seasons. Honeybee population adds an estimated $15 billion in value to U.S. crops each year. Beekeepers began reporting their high losses in 2006. The term colony collapse disorder was coined as a result to describe adult bees abandoning their hives. Today, however, this phenomenon accounts for only a small fraction of bee losses. Scientists believe a number of causes are hurting the bees. These include bee viruses and poor nutrition. The use of weed killers is reducing the areas where bees can live. Monocropping, growing just one plant over a large area year after year, may limit bees from eating a varied diet. The argument. The debate about the bees is part of a larger battle over the future of agriculture. Supporters of modern farming practices see bee deaths as an added cost of food production. They note that the losses have not significantly affected harvests or food prices. This group opposes pesticide restrictions. They argue that bans will reduce crop yields and that the benefits to bees will be limited. What's more, farmers might return to using older, more toxic chemicals. This would leave the bees worse off. Critics of modern agriculture see bee deaths as a sign of deep problems in the food system. They support crop rotation, reduced chemical use, and sustainable land management practices. For example, they believe some land should be set aside to grow weeds for bees to feed on. They argue that these measures are necessary to return bee colonies to health. Often, they are supporters of pesticide-free farming. A White House-appointed task force released its plan to improve bee colony populations in May 2015. The U.S. National Stakeholders Conference on Honeybee Health issued a 2012 report. Beekeeper Randy Oliver explores the issues on his website, Scientific Beekeeping. The website for the nonprofit Xerces Society also has useful information. Also in your article today, there were two visuals in the right-hand column of page 2. One had definitions in them, and the other one had a couple of maps of the United States. And in that image that's on the bottom of page 2, they were talking about, in that yellow picture, well, black and white might not show it, but there's two pictures of the United States where the bees are and where they need to be. So on the very front page, there was a picture of bees on their honeycomb. So there was a lot of vocabulary in that particular article. And so one of the things that I do as I read is I have my pencil in my hand and I'm circling words that I'm not very familiar with or that I know I'm going to need to understand more deeply as I go. So what we're going to want to do now is think about, what is the gist, the basic sense of what this text is about? How do you know this? So what do you think the gist is? They talked a lot about bees, didn't they? And it seems like the bee populations over the years have been dwindling, and they're trying to figure out why. They talked a lot about pesticides and how they might be affecting the bees and how to keep bees healthy. Talking about their nutrition, right? So think about, what is the gist and the basic sense of what this text was about today. And then I'd like you to turn and talk with someone in the household or someone that is near you, a caregiver, a family member. And remember that last week we introduced the concept of literary arguments and claims. If you need to, you could go back into week 1, lesson 1, and take a look at the work that you did. But I'd like you to talk with someone about, what is the general argument being made by bee blight? This article, it's called Bee Blight. What is their general argument? And what specific claims are made about the argument? Look at the sections of the text. Turn and have that conversation. Pause the video for now. And in a few minutes after you chatted about it, come on back and I'll be waiting for you. Okay, now we're ready to do the heavy lifting. The writing aspect is the most powerful outcome of this process, because what we do is we read, we think, we talk, and we write. All of those components every day are really critical to our learning. And now you get to demonstrate what you've learned today by using your note catcher, and it says Lesson 5 note catcher. You're going to write the argument and supporting claims that you identified from the article called Bee Blight. So, like you just had that conversation, and if we go back to that slide, what is the general argument made by bee blight, and what specific claims are made about that argument? You're going to go back to the article called Bee Blight, and you're going to look for those pieces of evidence and those ideas. I'm going to give you about 20 minutes to pause this recording. Just push pause, and I'll be here when you get done with your note catcher, and we'll talk that through a little bit. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, fantastic. Welcome back. I know the writing piece is actually where your authentic learner really moves with the article and all the work and thinking and talking you're doing. So when you get into your argument, what was the author of this particular article trying to argue? Bee populations are in jeopardy. They're dwindling. They're getting less, and they're trying to figure out why. And they have an argument that is really about what is most likely affecting bee populations. And they really did focus quite a bit on the pesticide industry. They used a lot of terminology around that, especially on page 1, and they get into that on page 2. So your argument and claims are going to be very focused on what they wrote about in this particular article today. We're going to spend lessons 5 today and 6, 7, 8, and 9 coming up all on this article of bee blight. And all the work you're doing this week will be used on another writing assignment at the end of the week. So share your writing from today with someone and tell them why you chose to write what you did. And make sure that you fit in a little extra reading time, maybe 20 more minutes, where you can read articles from your distance learning packet, or possibly read online, maybe read the news, possibly read some things that are around your environment. And in the very end, if you would use a timer and set it for 60 seconds and begin reading your article another time today. And after 60 seconds, just put a mark on the page as to how far you get. We're going to do this all week, and it is expected, I won't be surprised at all, if you make it a little further in the article every time you read it, because your brain will develop what is called fluency. It's going to begin to know how to say the words and understand the flow of the sentences and the scientific knowledge being shared and all this information about bees. So your fluency will actually go up. Thanks for your time today. I look forward to seeing you again real soon. Make it a fantastic day.